If this message speaks to you, don't just like it, pass it on. Share it directly with someone who needs to hear it, because messages like this don't always reach everyone they should. Thank you and enjoy. Newsom, California, and the repair question. What we've got, what's missing, and what's next. California took a big step in 2023 when the state's Reparations Task Force delivered a massive report, a blunt accounting of centuries of harm, state-sanctioned racism, and recommendations for repair. Since then, Governor Gavin Newsom has made a mix of moves, some that lay the groundwork, some symbolic, and some that fall short of the real reparative justice. What he's done matters, and what he hasn't done yet still matters, especially if we're watching until reparations comes. So what's been done under Newsom that aligns with the task force? The creation of a permanent state Reparations Bureau. In October 2025, Newsom signed SB 518 into law, establishing the Bureau of Descendants of American Slavery. That bureau was charged with verifying whether individuals qualify as descendants of enslaved people, reviewing complaints related to property taken via racially motivated eminent domain, and providing a pathway for compensation or restitution. This creates infrastructure as home base, as lawmakers call it, for future reparations work. A formal state apology for slavery and systemic racism. So Newsom signed into law an apology for California's role in slavery and subsequent state-sanctioned discrimination. There was also funding for preliminary steps for genealogy verification and research. Part of the new legislation includes a mandate for verifying lineage, and the state allocated funds for research to support that process, which is a baseline step before any reparations distribution. And then finally, public recognition and political legitimacy for reparations. By signing these bills, Newsom has put reparations, at least in part, on the official agenda that transforms reparations from fringe demand into policy reality in California. The state's bureaucracy and public resources will now be involved. Now let's talk about where Newsom and state policy have fallen short. No cash payouts yet. Despite the task force recommending compensation and restitution, Newsom has expressed that reparations should be more than a check in the mail. Major bills aimed at directing reparative benefits were vetoed. Vetoed bills for education and housing equity tied to reparations. So a bill that would have allowed public universities to give admissions preference to descendants of enslaved people was vetoed. Proposals to compensate victims for racially motivated eminent domain or to reserve a portion of home buyer loan programs for descendants were also rejected. No full adoption of the 100+ recommendations from the task force. In 2023, report had dozens of proposals across housing, education, criminal justice, economic redress, land property restitution, public apology, and structural reform. To date, the state has only taken small steps: apology, bureau creation, and lineage verification research, but not the structural or economic interventions that would amount to real reparations for most descendants. So there's a timeline and an execution that remain unclear. bureaucracy may slow or stall actual benefit delivery. So, having a bureau and verifying lineage is one thing. Delivering compensation, housing aid, wealth building, systemic investment is another. As of now, there are no clear timeline, no funding mechanisms for payouts, and no guarantee that lineage verification will lead to real reparations. So, what's at stake? What are the risks? And what do we watch for closely? There's a reason why we want to do this. Because this is what matters. Infrastructure exists via the Bureau. That means descendants could qualify and apply. But we need to follow, when does the Bureau open? And what are its criteria for descendant status? What is its budget? The official apology resets the moral political narratives. The state now admits its role. So what do we watch for? How media and public officials treat reparations after the apology. As symbolic or as commitment? Does that lead to wider public support? And then the potential door for property restitution and land wealth recovery around eminent domain complaints and property reclaim, we'll have to track. When does the post-eminent domain review start? Are cases filed? Are funds allocated for restitution or return? And then the risk of slide into bureaucracy, delays, foot dragging, empty promises, many vetoes show the political limits. So we need to monitor which reparations bill remain active, what gets funding, what gets vetoed next. Are there community watchdogs or reparations coalitions putting pressure? And then finally, California could become a national model or a disappointment. Other states and cities are watching. So what do we watch for? Will California's progress push other states to act? Or will weakness, vetoes, and delays reinforce the idea reparations are impossible? So if you're asking what this means, here's our progress and the limits. In 2023, Task Force report provided a detailed, government-sanctioned historical accounting of slavery's legacy in California, including redlining, segregation, discriminatory housing laws, voter suppression, and etc. The creation of a permanent state bureau for descendants of slavery in 2025 changes reparations from talk into institution building. Now there's a body meant to track, recognize, and administer reparative programs. The state issuing a formal apology for slavery and state-sanctioned discrimination is symbolic, but important. It gives moral and political legitimacy to reparations efforts. Local governments are already using the task force findings to guide county or city level equity and reparative actions for housing justice, redress, historical record review. Funding is being put aside for reparations work, administration, studies, genealogical verifications, and etc. But there remains important obstacles and limitations. Some critical proposals failed and were vetoed, giving descendants of slavery priority in university admissions is off the table for now. Measures like cash payouts, large-scale financial compensation, or direct wealth transfers still have not been passed. The new Bureau doesn't guarantee checks. It sets up a mechanism for future decision-making that's consistent with many until reparation comes models. Some advocates and community members criticize the pace. They say that setting up a bureaucracy or a genealogical verification process can delay real relief for too long. What this means for our work? This California story gives you a living example of the in-between space. Since the 2023 release of the California Reparations Task Force Executive Report, the link will be in the description, Governor Gavin Newsom has taken limited but significant action, creating a state reparations bureau and issuing a formal apology for slavery and state-sanctioned discrimination. But most of the 115 recommendations remain untouched. So until we meet again, we will keep an eye open for the launch of the Reparations Bureau. We'll find the timeline for its implementation. We'll find out if the budget expands beyond the $12 million. And we will also find out if there are any property or eminent domain restitution cases that are happening. Because we need political pressure versus the veto patterns that we have been seeing. Anyway, stay tuned, and we will be here until reparations comes. If you're still here, thank you for hanging out this long. Please hit the like and subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that I can bring you more content like this.